All right, I would like to call to order the Monday, October 30th meeting of the City Council Committee of the Whole review of the 2024 operating budget. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Rademacher.
Here.
Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Alder Vidula.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
And Alder Holmquist is excused.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll start our discussion, or we'll hear from the department heads about their 2024 operating budget proposals. And first up is Diane Mickelbank of the Senior Center, and I think this is on page 128.
Yeah, 128.
Okay.
So most of this one is pretty simple. We did the simple 1% increase for the majority of this budget. There are 3 line items that are a little different. When we talk about Newbridge, which are the contracted senior services and the program development or Home Tour, I kind of cover this every year if you've been through these budget meetings before. Those are, even though they're not a personnel line item in our city budget, it's contracting for people's salaries. So this is our case managers who meet with our seniors and Home Chore, who coordinates volunteers to work in seniors' homes, doing indoor chores or outdoor. So our senior committee made a recommendation that when those 2 line items be increased by 3%, because if we don't add up to some sort of reasonable increase for their staff increases, they continue to lose staff. So those are both increased by 3%. The other one that's a little different, that's actually gone down, is the very last line, the RSVP. So this is Retired Senior Volunteer Program, and we contract with them to coordinate rides with volunteers and seniors who need rides to medical appointments. We've been seeing since COVID that participation in this program has declined drastically, and had a conversation with them. We know that part of it's hard to find volunteers to do this. The other thing is seniors are kind of still hesitant to go into cars with strangers post-COVID. So they've decreased their budget for the next year. And part of what we're going to work on is basically promoting this service. We don't want to eliminate it, and I'm not sure that my limited staff and their time want to take this on ourselves. So they have agreed to decrease their budget a little bit, and I think this is fine. When they're not giving rides, they're not reimbursing mileage, so and we'll probably come under this budget for 2024, just playing it safe. So those are just the raw numbers. Any questions about any details on those things?
Nancy?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to report that, I was at the meeting when the contract with Newbridge was discussed, and I just wanted to let everybody know that they were not only there the day after the major fire.
There we go.
They were not only there the day after the major fire, but they continue to stick with all the residents of Benoni Hills, doing really a gigantic amount of the work. And so we know how valuable that service it always is, but they really proved themselves then again when we had that kind of an event. So we've, I think that 3% is definitely warranted. And obviously we had a discussion about RSVP at the same time too, and as Diane said, I think it's highly unlikely that that we would meet that they would use all that money, because as she said, there's very, very, very few people using that service. But I think the idea of marketing it and really trying to get the word back out to everyone is a good idea. Support it.
Anyone else? Any questions for Diane? Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Diane.
Yep.
Next up is community media. This is on page 100. Will.
Hello. I was waiting until everybody found the page 100.
Good.
So I guess I will start by just recapping revenue because we're a little different, of course. Part of our revenue is the general property taxes, but the majority comes from the cable franchise fees. We get a little state aid as well as our contract and agreement with the Monona Grove School District. So that's our funding and has been for a while. You'll see some increases this year in two places, essentially. The first being under the television revenue under studio maintenance. Last year it was $2,000. This year it is now $4,500. And that $2,500 is the fee for the cloud service to keep our Monona Go app functioning. That's just how it works. For the service provided, they have their own cloud server, and if we want to utilize their services for the app, we have to provide a yearly subscription. And that subscription covers all the platforms. So if we were to increase our platform, right now we're just on the smartphone mobile app, but if we went to Apple TV, Roku, the Amazon Fire Stick, we would have to pay to get on those, but once we're on them, it would all come off of that same $2,500 cloud service fee. And then the other increase, of course, is personnel, but I am looking to increase one of the current part-time radio positions from $15 an hour at 24 hours to $18.50 an hour at 24 hours. This gentleman works and does the programming and volunteer coordination. And it's, in my professional opinion, it's a job that is more than a $15 an hour job. It's a job where if he left, we would be, you would see me doing a lot of work and not doing a lot of other work to fill in for what he was doing, because it's not something someone can just jump in and do, working with the programming and the software, and then also just managing the volunteers. That's a little bit of a personnel skill set. So I believe he deserves, and we deserve to start paying that what it should be paid, so that we can budget accordingly moving forward.
So what will it be paid per hour, the new wage?
So he was at 50. They are at 15 this year. Next year it would be $18.50. So it would be an increase of $3.50 an hour.
Thanks.
Which is about $5,000 around there. And any of the other increases would be Mark having to increase for insurance and all those things.
I just wanted, the one thing, if you're looking at the revenue, page 100, the most property tax went from 10,000 to 38,000. The reason why is because the expenses and salaries didn't go up that much. The big reason is because last year we had 16,000 of fund balance, and our fund balance is fairly low now in the fund, so that's why it's not needed this year. So that's the big swing.
And we've known that the franchise fees are they've been dropping and they're going to continue.
Yeah, the franchise fees with the state is basically should be consistent from here on. They're not going to grow one way or the other as much. It's going to go down a little bit. If that's going to be pretty flat for a while now.
It looks like it's been flat for about 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty consistent since.
And that's, I think as the younger generation gets older, we'll see, right? We'll see whether they move to cable or if they keep using the online platform. My guess is, and probably the marketers and those out there are going to say not too many of them are going to go back to cable. They're just going to stay online, which would then decrease the franchise fees. But you never know. I mean, you never know what's going to happen.
The apartments will have an issue. I mean, with new apartments coming in, that will have
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
And it has, but I think that's why we've stayed steady a little bit,
Yeah.
because some of them are kind of moving around, and instead of just dropping completely, they're moving to a different subscriber, and we're adding subscribers with TDS. So I think that was a benefit for us, obviously, having TDS come in.
Do you two have anything else?
That's it.
Any questions for Will? Nancy?
Yeah, I just know, and I know that this doesn't directly impact your operating budget, but I know that for a few years, the Friends were a little lagging behind as it relates to like keeping Watts and keeping other fundraising going for other critical needs for the station.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I'm wondering if they've sort of caught back up now, or they're continuing to.
Yes, they are doing pretty well, and in fact, they just helped us out and bought about $2,500 worth of equipment just recently that was going out. So they have some money now, and they're there, for kind of those big ticket equipment purchases. I feel like that we just don't budget for. So yeah, they've organized a little better, and so they're doing well.
Okay.
Anything else?
I guess only just a comment on the wage increases. This is my committee, and I can share that the entire committee wholeheartedly supports that. So it's well deserved.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, thank you very much, Will.
Thank you, Will.
Next up is Chief McMullen and Fire and EMS. Jerry, you want to start with fire? Does it matter to you?
Whatever's easiest. I have fire on top because that was first in the packet.
There we go.
Okay, so that's page 61.
What page is it?
61, I think.
Thank you.
Everybody ready? This is going to go real quick. There's very few changes on the fire side. We went with the mayor's directions almost to the letter, almost to the dollar from last year's budget, with the exception of personnel costs, which are contracted. And so anything above line item 133, I don't do much with. I take the numbers I get from Mark and I roll with that. Everything below there is almost identical to last year. The only significant change is the equipment maintenance and repair. I can tell you it will be above $34,000 this year. I haven't got the bill for ladder 3 yet, which I'm expecting to be in the $10,000 range. I will make a discussion point. I know it came at the capital budget meetings talking about the replacement schedule for the engines. One of the reasons we do replace them, whether they look decent or not, the last 3 years we spent $45,000 in maintenance on that engine, and that won't go down.
On the ladder, this is?
No, on engine 4.
Is that the older engine?
Yeah, the one that we replace on that replacement schedule, as it gets closer to that 20-year time frame, the maintenance costs just go bonkers. So far, they've replaced the AC system completely 3 times in the last 3 years. It just fails. Even the parts are old. They're
Is there
new
any
parts.
kind of warranty on that?
On the labor side, there's a warranty, but the parts, they're new parts, but they're all old manufacturer parts. The AC systems change over the years.
So we had to pay for it 3 times? Are you
Parts,
saying?
yeah. Labor they cover because it's within the year time frame, but parts is actually the more significant piece of repair work, unfortunately. Other than that, everything else is the same, except for $500 more somewhere.
Questions, anyone?
The overtime budget was $500 higher. That's, I knew there was 500 in there somewhere.
I don't really have a question. I have a comment, which is, when my air conditioning crapped out in my car, John Dish recommended that I just go with 480. That would be 4 windows down.
That's how I grew up.
Which, of course, only John could do. I didn't know. I barely knew him at that point. I was new to the neighborhood.
The police chief is here and you're admitting this meeting.
Anyone else?
That's the least complicated fire budget I think I've ever seen.
I try to keep it straightforward.
It's-
With the budget constraints we work with, it's,
Yeah. Yep.
Mark, did you have
Yep.
anything
It's
to?
where we
No,
are.
it's
I'm sorry, did you?
No.
Well, I guess if everyone's okay with fire, we'll move to EMS, which is 139.
Before you start on that, so I don't know if you guys saw when I sent out a revised one of these back last week, before the last meeting. Well, basically, doesn't change anything other than the public safety aid is zeroed out, and the ambulance fee is 605, so just so you're aware of this.
The bottom number stays the same, though,
Yeah.
you're saying?
and if everybody's on that page, I'll start with that.
Okay.
Revenue increases, the GEMTS program, which is a new state program, takes effect for this year, but we get the check next year. We don't know what that amount is yet. Based on our call volume and our payer mix, I'm estimating $25,000 to $30,000 as a straight payment of revenue. It goes directly in our revenue account. Doesn't count towards LifeQuest. They don't take their fee as a direct payment from the state. And that's a program of money paid to offset the cost of providing the service compared to what Medicaid and Medicare pay us. So I had to do all the data collection for them anyway, based on their ET3 program, so it's an easy transition for us. So I won't know what that amount is until probably late February. But it'll be for all the calls we had in 2023, but the revenue comes as the following year. The other revenue portion is I'll be taking it to public safety. We left the fees alone this year in 23. Worked with, I keep calling LifeQuest, but it's EMSC, to do a fee study to make sure we're charging what we're supposed to be charging in comparison to other agencies. And there's since we let it sit for a year, there's a fairly significant increase in fees, which generally applies to folks with insurance. Medicare pays what they're going to pay, Medicaid pays what they're going to pay. People without insurance aren't going to pay. Is basically how it works out. So the fee increases basically reflect on people who have health insurance. But based on our numbers from 23 and the fees that I'm proposing, the 605 is conservative. But I'll leave it at that. I think I spoke with the mayor. We wanted to make sure we positioned ourselves to be decent in the 25 budget year as well. So 605 was a reasonable number to go with. Anything over that will go to the fund balance. Expense-wise, again, it's pretty much an unchanged budget from what we had in 2023. I'm refreshing my memory other than the contracted costs for wages and health insurance. So other than that, I think I left it exactly the same as last year.
And a fair amount of this is kind of split with the fire department, right?
Yeah, so like professional development is heavy on the EMS side because we do more license required training on the EMS side. All of the other items, like EMS supplies, we have a matching fire supply line, but it's far less because we use more EMS supplies than we do fire supplies. So overall, it's this budget was built and we were able to keep all of our LT hours as well. I did look at that around the county to see if, because my original proposal last year was possibly needing to raise it again this year. Nobody has raised their LT wages, so I'm content to leave them at 22 an hour.
Have you been having some success
Yeah.
with LTs? I know for a while there they weren't.
The first part of the year, well, I will say in January it was great. We had an LT that was lights out. And then we hired her full time. Yeah, had an LTN today. She's pulling anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a month. I've got a second one that pulls almost that same number. And traditionally covering daytime staffing is what they're traditionally covering. But yes, we've actually had a pretty good run. With the hiring process we're putting together, we're going to invite those that aren't necessarily offered a full-time job the ability to come run LTE for us and try to build our pool up that way as well.
Anyone, any other questions? Teresa?
I have a question. Chief, on page 141, the second to the last bullet point, can you explain a bit more about how the brush truck could be reworked?
Oh, absolutely. We just got the brush start in. They said it wasn't going to be here till December, but it actually is. But the truck itself is in service. The CAD has been built. So basically what it comes down to is when I have 3-person staffing, instead of that third person taking the engine, I'll be taking the brush truck. So all the equipment that we carry medically will be moved to the brush truck for that day. If there's more than one, they'll take the engine because we have a staffed engine at that point. But if they're by themselves, which happens frequently, especially overnight, they'll take the brush truck. Idea being that we're going to reduce the wear on the engine. I can tell you as of today, that engine, which is a 2017, has 22,000 miles on it, which is a high number for a small community, but it goes out a lot. I mean, it responds to all the EMS calls. The idea behind that is beyond saving wear and tear on the engine is if they are responding to an EMS call and our ambulance needs a driver, it's far safer to park the brush truck on the side of the road, lock it up, walk away, and come back and get it afterwards. Where I can't do that with the engine. I can't turn it off and lock it. And it's $800,000 sitting on the side of the road with nobody around it. So we generally have to put a page out to try and get a volunteer that can drive to come in and pick it up. If we take that third person.
Are there usually 2 people in the ambulance?
Yeah, for critical calls, I need both of them in the back. So they'll take the third as a driver, but that leaves the engine sitting there.
I see.
This I can turn off and lock and walk away, and it's no different than any other vehicle on the side of the road. So there's a multitude of uses that will help reduce the wear on the engine.
And the brush truck as an accompany to the EMS, the ambulance, it carries all the equipment to the site that you would need.
Correct. So if they're out and about, which the engine crew is generally out more often because they do their inspections when they're on their engine day, so they'll be in the brush truck. They'll go. Generally they'll get there first because they're out and about. They've got a monitor, they've got a full med bag, all that stuff, so they can start care right away in critical patients. And they also respond if there's a second call. They respond and they have the monitor and the equipment until our mutual aid ambulance gets there.
So whether an engine accompanies an ambulance or a brush truck accompanies the ambulance, you have what you need,
Yes.
regardless of which of those 2 vehicles
Correct.
goes out. So really what I'm hearing is the engine is more a transportation of people as opposed
if
to...
I have more than one on. If I have like tonight I've got the third, I'm on overnight on the ambulance, but then I have a volunteer on tonight as well.
That's a very expensive transportation of people, which I see you're trying to
We're trying to
get away
reduce
from
the wear
that. I
on it.
understand that,
I say repair costs aren't getting any cheaper.
yeah.
And our brush truck that we had is not, it didn't work as well as this
Right,
one does for
right,
other,
yeah.
for more brush
Yeah,
truck related.
just so you're aware, that's been
Activities.
repurposed. That's my take-home vehicle now.
Yeah.
At this point, I expect it'll last me until I retire. It's actually in very good shape. It has 38,000 miles.
So what, another 20 years?
I can promise 10 at the minimum.
Anyone else? Any questions for the chief? Guess not.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Next up is Chief Cheney, Police and Dispatch.
No pressure, Chief. You gotta beat that time.
Yeah.
I'm going to fail miserably. No, actually, probably match that time.
Missy's not here anyways.
No, Missy's, are you texting her, Jay? The law enforcement budget is on page 54. Do you want to start with that?
Mark, if I get sick, hope you feel better. Okay, good evening, everyone. And starting with law enforcement, following directions on one of two budgets. 1% gave the police department $1,043 for non-salary, non-benefit line items. So that's everything from professional development down onto fuels and additives. I see a need, based on the spending patterns this year, the costs this year, to add to our vehicle maintenance and repair budget. We're already over that this year based on the cost of tires and the cost of the labor, et cetera, for things in which we've had to replace in our vehicles. And then also fuel. So we're on par for fuel. We're doing okay. But with our hybrid vehicles going down as they still have been this past year, actually the past couple of years, I'm having to adjust for that. So I pretty much have $1,000 to add to the budget, in addition to what's already been added for benefits and for salary. And that's where I prioritize where they needed to go, where the money needed to go. And hopefully in future years, we'll have a little bit more funding to add to some other line items that are in need, but we're sort of trimming the fat as much as we can.
And hopefully the equipment will hold up better,
Yeah.
too. Right.
Yeah.
Any questions, Nancy?
Yeah, so, can you explain why health insurance is going down?
It's probably somebody who didn't take
Family, yeah, all of that
That
changes.
kind of varies for everybody from year to year.
Yeah, it's actually two people went from family to opt-out to actually father and son with opt-out.
Okay.
So that saves about $30,000 just alone. You know, more, a little less than that, but it's 25. It's a big number. Then you add the other.
Then you're adding some people.
Then you add the increase.
Okay.
That's why it went down because of the opt-out change.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Guess not. Go to dispatch, 70.
And this is where I tried to follow the mayor's directions and instructions, but failed miserably out of necessity. Again, this is everything but the health care and the benefits, the benefits and the salary. So everything from professional development down to dispatch supplies. The only thing that really I could touch based on the increases was the MPSIS budget, which is the bulk of our budget. For those, as a refresher, the multi-jurisdictional public safety information system. Ooh, this is why we always say MPSIS. So it's the intergovernmental agency that Monona is a part of, which includes Verona, Fitchburg, Sunbury, Middleton, and ourselves. We share resources, and we get the best bang for our buck in sharing a records management system, some of the IT components that are required to do the job, and we get better pricing when we pay in bulk and pay by group. So that's why I will continue to advocate for MPSIS and our participation. I had a good question, but just to add some clarification for those who may not be aware, I had a good question as it relates to the MPSIS funding and budget and what that means for emergency communications dispatch. They're tied together, but they're not married together. What I mean by that is that if, for whatever reason, hypothetical, if this community decides to get rid of their dispatch center, which I would strongly advocate not doing for a variety of reasons, you will still have to pay this MPSIS budget. Right? There's still $100 and something thousand that your police officers need. So it's the records management, it's all the systems and servers and software, et cetera, that connects the things that we use on the police side of the house, but also obviously your dispatchers utilize the program maintenance systems as well. So I had a very good question about that, so I wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page and understands that. So the MPSIS budget for Monona went up. And it went up because of service contracts. It went up because some things that we didn't have to pay in for the previous few years are now coming due. in which we have to subscribe or resubscribe to new service contracts, et cetera. Some of the things that went up include maintenance, or include the hardware replacement. So things, the hardware that we actually physically use for the consortium, there are new components or new items that were added that we put into the hardware replacement budget that went up as well. LPR, which is the license plate readers, so some of our squad cars are equipped. I can tell you they're not equipped currently. We're not utilizing them because the officers, and I don't blame them, do not use that. Instead, we'll be transitioning to what the county has and Cottage Grove and the rest of the consortium agencies are using, which is the flock system. So that's the same camera system as the license plate readers, but it's the one you put on a traffic pole, for example. It does not do, it's illegal to monitor speed, and it's against the law for us to do that. It's literally doing what a moving car had previously done, but putting it stationary on a pole. So that's what we'll be transitioning to.
I may have misunderstood you. Did you say it was illegal for you to monitor speed?
Using camera system. It's
We can monitor,
expensive.
you can't issue a citation.
We
That's
can't,
what-
nor can
Okay.
we can't monitor
Oh.
either.
Okay.
Correct.
So we can't have cameras like on the traffic lights,
Correct.
right?
That's
Yeah,
good to know.
monitoring speed. We can have cameras that look at vehicles, but we can't have a device that also monitors the speed of the vehicles. I can be there on person all I want, but the camera system, it's literally in statute that we can't do that.
I think a lot of people don't know that, because other states do.
They
allow
do.
it.
Yeah.
Be
Right.
careful in the
And then you
law,
get a
be
ticket
careful
in the
in-
mail, you know.
Exactly.
Well, I think.
Exactly, yeah.
So
Doug.
there's 5 communities in MIPSIS,
Yes.
and not including Madison. So they're Fitchburg, Middleton, Sunbury, Verona, and Monona. But
And Middleton, did you mention
yeah,
Middleton?
Middleton. Yep.
Yes, and we pay our share based on population size. So we pay something like 7% of the total budget, and others are at 28% of that budget. We're the smallest.
And Madison is not obviously part of that. I know there are issues that come up with getting records, looking at records. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so we're in a different records management system with Dane County, the Sheriff's Office, and with Madison and a few other municipalities. In an ideal post 9/11 world, we would be all in the same record management system, utilizing the same methods in which to access data and records. We each have our own respective municipalities with respective budgets and desires to control operating budgets, and so that is why you have different municipalities utilizing different records management system. I have, since I started, made formal requests to the Madison Police Department to access their records management system. Even at a price, I can come to you all and say, hey, Madison is offering this price for access and to maintain access to the records management system. Right now, I don't have access to that, and that has since been respectfully denied that access based on what I'm told are some technological constraints in getting us access. I respectfully, I'm not the tech guru in the house, but our contracted IT person, our consortium crime analysts, our IT individual which we pay money for through the MIPSIS consortium, who's housed in Fitchburg, at the time thought that in fact we could access their data, and we were told no. So I don't want to press too harder on Madison. They have their own reasons, and again, I'm not the IT person in the room to comment on any of the particulars. But obviously, I came from Madison, and I'm aware of their systems. I'm aware of their ability to share data. I don't know what has happened since, but something apparently has happened since. So what that means is that we can still request their records, but we have to go through a process in which to do that. And it's not, as you can imagine, being surrounded by Madison, it's quite burdensome when we're investigating a crime and the suspect likely is from Madison, and to figure out what they may be involved in, what their last address was, what other contacts they may have had in Madison. We can't do that necessarily at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. We're going to have to wait for the morning, put in a request in, see if we hopefully get an answer back that day. It doesn't work the other way around. Madison has access to our records because we share with this larger intelligence record sharing system called LINKS. And it's a national database in which we share our records with, because I am a strong believer, and this happened with Wally before me, information out means information in. Somebody's going to come across a name or a suspect or an individual in which resides, or we've had contact here in the city of Pomona that may be a potential homicide suspect in another jurisdiction. We want to know that, and we want to be made aware. And there have been several cases, not as extreme as that, in which we've identified folks in our community or that we've had regular contact with that have been suspects or have been identified or arrested as suspects of crimes and major crimes in other jurisdictions. We share our information. Madison has access to our information through this national database. Madison does not contribute to sharing their narratives. They share the call type, they share other factors in this database, but we can't read their reports. We have to request that.
So, Chief, what's Madison running for their RMS, their records management system?
LERMS, L-E-R-M-S.
Oh, so you're not talking about like Spillman, you're not talking...
That's the county, that's Dane County, yeah. Dane County runs Spillman, Madison runs LERMS, we are running Zerker.
Yeah.
Are these
Central Story.
aliens? What are
No, they're...
They sound like it, right?
Yeah. So Madison is running LEARN.
Is that a type of software? Or the
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a records management software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
So
Dane County share their information?
they do. Yep, they share their information. Frankly, it's Madison, it's the city of Madison, which, you know, it's a challenge because
Yeah.
they have the most records in our area,
Yeah.
and obviously have a great deal of contacts and persons and information that they house. And again, I was an insider, so I know how much is in there. There's a lot of valuable information that's in there. And it's not one of those situations in which I want to say quid pro quo, right? Because I think there's value in Madison having access to our data as well. In fact, there have been many cases, to include some of the shooting investigations, in which the MIPSIS organization, the consortium group, has had contact with individuals in which they may not have. And so we were the lead, thanks to our records that Madison was able to follow up on.
Yeah, it's almost never an IT issue. It's a people issue. It's a sharing. It's an ownership. Guarding of information issue. Yeah,
I'm trying to censure myself here.
yeah. Is there, and you're looking for information before it's referred to the DA office. I mean, you're looking for all sorts of prior referral information, but
Yeah, I mean, and say, for example, we have a name and a description. Well, we can search this database, we can search, our consortium, record management system, we can search the county. Madison might have that missing piece of the puzzle that helps us solve a crime. And I have told this story to the higher levels at Madison PD since becoming chief here. I've talked to members in the mayor's office at Madison about this desire and my request, and I've gotten that answer about why they can't share that, can't/unwilling. I don't know.
So are there times when you request information and you don't get it from them?
We always get it. It's just the timeliness of that information. And when you're investigating crime, the time is critical. And I want our officers to have quick and immediate access to that information, as Madison officers have quick and immediate access to our information.
And you have to ask for it each time.
Correct.
Right, so there's a rigmarole you have to go through on the front end to get anything.
Correct. And with all systems, there's audit features, there's, if there's a concern about who's looking at our records, et cetera, we can see that now with our records. We can see if somebody's accessing our records. And so, in my opinion, there's not an issue of security or who's accessing that information because it's all controlled. So I struggle with this a lot and have been since I started because, in my transition, the conversations were going really well, and I thought we were on the path of having access, even paid access, like I mentioned.
Do your officers use like e-time or the Wide Justice Gateway, or is that just not what the data that you're looking for?
Yeah, we do. We use the time system, so that's the state portal. So if you run somebody on a traffic stop, et cetera, we use that too. Our dispatchers have more access to that. They're at a higher trained level because they can search more things with the system. But and so that would be separate than this LERM's access, Madison's records access. So this is the statewide.
So you're sort of looking for like the fields in a database which would not be traded with another. You're looking for like the notes, the officer's notes, the crime scene notes, which are very protected. I mean, that's very few systems share notes fields.
Yeah, not notes. We want the reports.
Well.
So all the router monitor reports an incident, right? Hypothetical.
Right.
You report an incident. Our officers create a case report on it. They do a narrative on it. Mm-hmm. There's detailed information. There's all your contact information, etc. Madison just so happens to inquire about all the router monitor. They have all of that information. They have unless I close it, unless it's a very sensitive case in which I'm going to want to keep closed temporarily while I investigate, like a significant or high-profile case, for example, or a very, very sensitive case, for example, or an internal investigation, for example. But Madison would have access to all of that narrative and contact information listed from your agency's police department, as well as the other consortium agencies.
Right. I mean, the DA's office is getting the narrative electronically. From any county in the state. So but law enforcement is not sharing it between law enforcement. But they are sharing it with prosecutors.
Yeah, so we are sharing it amongst ourselves. It just so happens that the biggest fish in the room is not sharing it with us. Yeah, and I should mention that there are other agencies, law enforcement agencies, who are on the LERM system as well. So they're on the same records management system as Madison. I will tell you that there's pros and cons of that. The pro is that they then have access to Madison's records, right? So McFarland has access to Madison's records because they share the same records management system.
And Madison can't prevent that.
Well, they probably can, but one of the incentives to paying into Madison's system is that you have access to their records, right? So some of this may or may not be politics, but I said politics. So the issue is that I can't then go to McFarland and say, hey, McFarland, can you give me access to this Madison police report because it's in violation of their interagency agreement as it relates to how they use their records management system. But McFarland has access to Madison's records. We do not, simply because we're not on the same system as them, and as I mentioned, that there's apparently some technological barriers that exist.
Yeah, so it just is a small follow-up to that. So as for you personally not being paranoid about this, what you're saying is that any agency, not just Monona, but any agency that's not on the same records management system as Madison has to go through the same rigmarole to get records.
Yes.
It's not just Monona. It's not anything.
We're not being singled out. There's not any kind of right between myself and anybody there. It's I think some of it has to do with, and this is just me, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess some of it has to do with, we went through this process. Some of you were on the council when there was a discussion on going over to Madison's system years ago when they updated to their new records management system, and that came at a cost, and that came at a loss of control, right? You are now at the mercy of when Madison is able to service your request for assistance, or when you're, you put in a ticket because you have an access problem. You're now at and they're big machines, as we know. You don't necessarily fall at the top of the line as far as their service requests. It's probably based on experience. In-house gets fixed first, and then the outside customer will be helped. that's part of the issue, I think, as to why the consortium group did not originally want to go into the same system as Madison, but there was a cost to. I don't remember the figure, but it was a pretty high cost, and then you no longer control that cost. Madison could say next year, outside of a contract, of course, if you're up for negotiations in the contract, we're going to increase your costs 20, 30 grand, and you're at the mercy of, unless you start from scratch and start your own and go with another system, you're at their mercy.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. Chief, when you get calls, how many of them would you say you get that are in Spanish? And if you do, how do you deal with those?
So currently we utilize a system called Language Line, which is a pay-as-you-go service. I think it's paid by the minute, actually, in which we sort of conference in with a language interpreter. And we've not had a language in which we could not find somebody to assist us with. That's no problem, is getting original information in your example of when somebody calls and the dispatcher says, hold on while I contact Language Line. Hopefully they understand that hold on. Most of the time the dispatchers make their way through that process. It takes about 3-4 minutes for us to explain to the Language Line operator what we need and what we're looking for assistance with, and then the conference begins. The problem is that you can't get the Language Line operator in the room for court. And everything is going to be hearsay, which is only admissible in certain situations when it comes to criminal arrests and criminal prosecution. So that's why it's important to have somebody physically present in which you can get to court or subpoena to be here. And these folks work not only within the U.S., I venture to say, I can't say this for sure, but I'm going to guess internationally as well, some of the people who we're on the phone with that work for this company. So it's beneficial, in my opinion, to have staff on hand who speak particularly Spanish, hopefully someday Hmong, to help translate and provide these services for folks.
Is that the same service that the municipal court uses, Language Line?
I can't say for sure. I'm almost confident that all of us are using the same service, but I can't necessarily speak for the municipal court. Yeah, there's a yes in the room.
Okay.
And to answer your question, we get about one a day. If some days we'll get 3 or 4 a day, and then my dispatcher will say, "Geez, it would be great if I spoke or I knew Spanish." And I do, when I'm in the office, I do help and facilitate servicing some of those calls too. But I also don't think you want your chief of police to be subpoenaed to court all the time. As much as I'm happy to do my job, I think you want me elsewhere.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Next up is Parks, Recreation, Community Center, and Pool. Missy.
What page?
I know. Sorry.
See,
If you want to start on Parks, it's on 89, I
Parks
think.
Operations is 89.
Yeah, Parks 89.
I'm just going to call them out the way they're listed here, unless you have some other one you'd like to do first.
I was just going to do kind of a summary overview, kind of
That's right.
everything, but if you have a specific way you want me to go, I can definitely.
Well,
do
you're
that
going to
as
go
well.
from page to page, though, so they can reference the...
Yeah, we can go, yeah,
Yep.
page 89. So for those of you that don't know, first off, some of our park revenue that we bring in doesn't go towards our park budget, it goes towards our general fund. So that would include our lake access permits and our park shelter permits that we have. And then, on our park salary, our big changes that we have is basically
reallocation of our LTE wages based on increased wages to fill some positions that we have open and some future positions. We have increased fees for our park shelter, our athletic fields, and our special event rentals, which are outside user groups that are coming into the city to hold special events. And then we have 50% of our gas and electric from our Grand Crossing Park is in the parks budget, and then the rest of it is in the rec budget. And then what we are adding in this year in our park shelter reservation fee is adding rentals in at Grand Crossing Park, which is something we've never done before. So that would be an increased revenue source. We've had a lot of demand and a lot of ask from outside groups and people wanting to host there. So we are going to give it a shot on a limited term basis, limited to 2 times a month, June, July, August, possibly September, if we go out that far. So,
And is it all just outside in the park? They bring in
Yeah.
tents or anything, or?
outside park, currently no tents. We haven't quite figured that out with our water irrigation system, where the best place would be to kind of stake down and house that. So right now it'd just be limited space, just a green space.
And the stage or just the green space?
Currently the green space.
Okay. And you would cord it off if it was a private rental somehow?
We'd be working with the individuals that are renting. A lot of them are kind of conducive and concurrent with Buck and Honey's and their downstairs rental. So I think there would be a lot of like mix and mingle back and forth between the 2 locations, which is kind of what's going on right now. The space has a lot of in and out traffic, but not a lot of stagnant stay traffic. So we're going to try this out and see if we can, drum up some sales. We're with some of our nonprofit groups, we're doing, instead of a fee waiver or with a fee waiver, donation in lieu of like ice cream sales. So some revenue on our end that would be guaranteed. So there's some different plans in the works for that revenue at Grand Crossing with some groups that are coming out. So if you would like to point me in the direction of how I am supposed to do this, then I can definitely.
If you can just address any changes that you know of, like in the parks budget itself.
Perfect.
It looks like not much.
Not much has really changed. Like we said, the park salary and the part-time wages are the big thing. Park salaries, we have some in-house reallocation based off of taking some budgets out of one and changing it into another, and then the part-time wages has changed as well. And then, as to be expected, the park supplies, toilet paper, standard things, cost of that has gone up.
Mark, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just so, Shane, we did increase the park shelter rentals in the general fund. Parks is in the general fund, so it does cover that. So the other big issue would be the health insurance. That's just there. People get married and things like that throughout the year.
Yeah.
Any questions about the parks? Nancy?
Yeah, just remind me what happens, she says, being excited about shovels in the ground. Remind me what happens with the park fees that we get when there's new construction that happens. I forget. Does that go into the general fund? Or is that
No, we have its own separate fund called Park and Dedication Fund.
dedication? That's right.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember the name of it.
Or no, we just got our first one. Otherwise, it's been 0. So
Right.
use that for capital projects.
Okay, so not capital projects in parks or capital projects?
Park-related projects.
Park-related projects. Okay.
And you're going to be addressing that later.
Well, it's yeah.
It's listed, yeah. Okay. Anything else other than that about parks? Okay, well then, should we move on to the rec budget, which is 115, I think?
We'll start with community center first. 116.
Somebody's problem. All right, 116.
Oh, this is kind of, this is community recreation, but then I guess the first thing there is
116.
community.
Yeah.
Community center.
Yeah, one's a summary.
Community center is the first thing listed under that.
Yeah, that's just a summary of all of them.
Yeah,
Tool force.
the next page is community centers.
116.
Might as well start there and just keep following along.
All right, so the big change in community center here, our equipment maintenance and, or excuse me, our contracted services, that's going to stay the same. Which one is our big change here?
So the big change here is admin services. I don't remember last week we talked about the buildings maintenance person. So they got reallocated, so there's a decrease. That's the big decrease in it. Otherwise, it's only $2,000 increase overall for non-personnel. Your stats. Cool.
Yeah, that's just moving from the after school to,
So that's just reallocating within the different
correct.
programs because community center needs less than it
Yeah.
used to, and yeah.
Because now they have basically these contract out cleaning services too. That was one of the bigger things too. He got moved.
And Chris no longer is there, right?
Chris is still at the city, just
But it's still not at the community center though?
just very, very, very.
Yeah, his budget's full, DPW. There's nothing allocated out of community
It
center.
was used to be when we changed
Yeah,
it.
it's not anymore. So that decrease in salaries.
Anything, any questions about community center?
Don't have much in there.
No.
All right. Rec, that
The
has
big one.
Rec has a lot of changes.
120.
Decreases and increases across the board, basically. Some do stay the same. We have a big decrease in our revenue from our special events specifically. We're decreasing the amount of beer gardens that we're offering. Basically going from 20 beer gardens, which it was like 18 we had last year, down to around 6 this upcoming season. We are changing our Maywood, our after-school program to running at Maywood, which is going to basically double our income and revenue, which also then has some expenses on the other side that comes in our part-time and full-time admin salaries. That program, though, along with the summer camp, would be self-sustaining, so there is no change in the tax levy based off of that program itself. So everything that program basically brings in is covered specifically with all the expenditures. That does include the $5,000 a month at Maywood for the rental fee. That would be there.
And this would be starting in June, is that right?
June is what we would like to push. We have July 1st in the contract right now. We'd like it to stay June 1st, so then we can start our summer camp program there at the larger 100 number versus the 75 that we had over the past summer, which we were at capacity at space and this location. We couldn't take anymore.
On page 127, just so there is a detail of this after-school program. Somebody wants to dig in if you want to look into it.
Yeah.
So basically, there is additional staff that needs to be hired for that. So.
I would have 2 full-time people that would be covering the 4K program, and then we currently have that position that's in yellow is a full-time position we have currently. And then the blue position we have currently, and whatever that greenish taupish is current.
They don't have the colors.
Oh, they don't have it.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, on screen. I would call that olive.
Awesome, thank you. It's actually green olive. Those are the 3 positions that we currently have. So when you started the 4K full-time, that'd be new position and new revenue opportunity that we would have by having Maywood. So we would be offering wrap care before and after school care, 3 different options there for somebody that's in 4K almost. To have basically full-time care when they're not in that 4K position. And then we would have our permanent part-time staff, which we're already currently having as part of our after-school program. And then we have some LTE staff, which are like high schoolers that come in that like 4 to 6:30 time after they get out of school. So kind of have some 3 tiers in our after-school specific program. It has kind of that same tier, though, in the summer camp as well. You would need the same amount to run basically the same type of program year-round at that point. We would still be looking at that Maywood rent all year as well, because we would be basing the summer camp program out of there as well. So the summer camp and after school, like I mentioned, we're completely self-sustaining based off of the revenue we're bringing in. We are at that 53 right now. We have an active wait list, and we know we'll hit that 100. We have 90 in here. We can probably hit 100 knowing the demographics. Even just today, somebody said, is there any chance our childcare, found out she's pregnant, and no, we don't have anything. So I don't think that this is going to change or go away. I think if anything, we probably just will end up having room to grow as long as we can continue to support the full-time staff aspect of it, which is nice.
Nancy?
Sorry, but I must have missed the memo while I was away around Maywood. Can you explain what's been
Yeah,
raised as it relates to
I
Maywood?
can, maybe you can jump into.
You know,
So-
Maestro Mundo's moved out of Maywood.
I know that,
So
and I
Jake's-
know that we've been in discussion with them, but that's as far as I know. So I
Yeah.
I didn't know.
We're
what-
just in the process of finalizing the
Yeah, so
contract.
Jake has been working with, and Bill and Bill Cole, been working with them, with the school district to take over Maywood. They would split the school. There'd be, the city would have a portion of it, the school would still have their, I can remember,
Couple of rooms, I think.
couple of
Maybe
rooms.
two rooms with bathroom access and shared space use of the multi-common
Yeah.
gym area for their 18 to 21-year-olds after, don't remember their term after school program for special needs individuals. So they would have 2 classrooms and then shared space with us with the rest of the building.
So part of that would take on the 4K RAD program.
Yep,
It's
that'd
part
be
of the-
taking
over that program, and the school would be basically in charge, still paying the utilities. The contract is being worked out right now, but it'd be, currently, they would pay for the utilities and any building maintenance requirements or things that would happen. We'd still have some cleaning and stuff on our limit there. We would be,
grass mowing.
yeah, we would be in charge of doing the mowing, the outside stuff. We would be in charge of also not snow mowing, but removing the snow and stuff like that. So that is in the works right now. We're talking about. So we should have a contract, not at the next meeting, but the meeting after that. We'll have an actual contract that we'll present at the second meeting in November. But yeah.
So, but that's obviously not a capital budget item, it's an operating item, correct?
Right. And then this is-
Yeah, but-
So the goal, when this is brought up to the mayor, we suggested this, her thing is, why, if we do this, we want to make sure all our revenues are going to cover our expenses and we're not adding
Right.
just additional. So that's been, Jake's job and Missy's job to figure that out. And we think we got a good handle of that now, a good handle of the numbers, and we've been through a couple different scenarios, and we think this is the best one. We think they will cover all the expenses that are needed. So I think it's,
We've been talking about this for a long time.
yeah.
Don't these programs actually make money, right?
Yeah,
Like
so
110,000?
Yeah, the after-school one is probably,
between, I have the numbers here.
the summer school is the bigger one, the summer.
Yeah, so summer camp makes more money, but that's also full-time care with, at this point, we're taking 25 more kids between after school and summer camp. But we're bringing in this is all together, so after school is $360,000, $950,000. Summer camp's $292,000. Altogether, though, our rec is $757,000 bringing in of revenue. In comparison, talking to like other rec departments, DeForest is a very comparable, I would say, population to us, and they don't even bring in near that much money in what would be, and that's just our rec budget. That has nothing to do with the rink numbers that are in there. That has nothing to do with the outdoor pool. We bring in a lot of money, and in return, though, we spend a lot of money.
Do we know about
That's-
what the expenses are? Because, I mean, they're quite a bit lower than 700, right?
Yeah. Our expenses are way lower, 61,000 for like all the 2024 expenses. That's just expenses. Staff is our big thing. We're $500,000 in staff.
Yeah.
But it takes people to run the programs that we're making money out of.
And where does the surplus go, Mark? General fund?
So at the end of the year, like this year, unfortunately, we'll have a little bit of a loss in the pool. So I'll cover that loss in the pool, and then whatever's remaining gets closed out to the general fund.
So it makes the department whole, whatever the losses might be.
Gain or loss at the end of the year. So just so you know, Jimmy, this is basically going to be like a 3-year contract. So
Yeah, that was going to be my next
With
question.
Mayor
How
King.
long of a contract?
5 years.
is it
but-
5 years?
Yeah.
That was 3.
Bill changed it to 5.
Oh, I didn't see
Yeah.
those change. So 5 years.
Yeah, 5-year contract. Bill's big fear is he knows that this program will be success. He
Right.
knows that we'll have the foundation behind it. In 3 years, the school's going to go from 5,000 to 15,000 in the contract. So he wants us to have the lower number for a longer amount of time,
Nice.
with knowing that the program's going to self-sustain it for the long run.
There's a termination clause, like every contract we have. So
Sure.
school can terminate and you can terminate. So there is that little bit of like any of our contracts has that in there.
Missy?
So does that mean the upper floors of the community center will basically not even be used?
Yeah, that'd be well. So that
No, not necessarily. That would mean that Diane would have more access to run her senior programs, which is already busting out the door with her levels as it is. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're sitting stagnant throughout the day as it is. She's already using the upstairs Monday
Sure.
through Friday in different capacities and
Right.
classes as it is. So now she'll just have more access to doing that.
That's fantastic.
That would also open up more Boy Scout, Girl Scout nighttime. I mean, we have a really hard time right now flipping things back and forth from the full daycare, but now that we have some of these other things, we'll be able to like swap back and forth and do some of those more community-based orientation things that we can't do when we have 54 kids in all day, every day,
Right.
in
It's-
addition to what we're doing.
There's such a thing to be proud of. Missy, seriously, it's extraordinary, and just we think about the values that we have. We're taking care of our kids, taking care of our seniors,
It takes a team.
offering these amazing, amazing parks and recreation programs. And I'm sorry if you already said this, but when do you expect that programming at Maywood would start?
It would be ideally June 1st, if
Okay.
not July 1st is what contract has
Wow.
right now. We would have to know in place, like Mark said, we're getting, kind of down to the wire. We do registration at February 15th, so people already know by that time when if
Yeah.
they get the spot or not for that June 1st. So
Yeah.
parents are already thinking ahead. Childcare is, I think, the number one thing that makes working parents go round.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
no childcare, no working parents.
Yeah.
So economy. So we have a good thing that we're doing.
And then Missy, on page 127, down toward the bottom of that graph where you're talking about the Maywood rent,
127.
Yeah. and it says 5,000 a month for 5 months. So
So
is it a year-round rental? Or?
That's just in the after-school
Got it.
rental.
Got
the
it.
other months are then sustained in
Got
the
it.
summer camp.
Makes perfect sense. So as soon as you said that, I'm like,
So-
of course.
And,
Okay.
and it's only half a year as
Yeah.
well. So this is it's very complicated how the full year to year, the year when the school runs between both. So it's like half a year and
Yeah.
no summer camp.
But you will have summer camp. But
We will have
yeah.
summer camp, but
Right.
this specific
Just
snippet
after
and
school,
shot is just 2024
after school.
and 4K.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay.
Right. Done? Or is that done with after school?
I think that's most of that, yeah.
After school is the big thing on
Yes. It is.
on the rec budget, but the decrease in special events is going to make me very happy.
Is the rec, just one other question, is the
Yeah.
the rink in this rec budget?
Yep, the
Yes.
rink
Right.
is in this rec budget, correct. So that has its own part-time wages and its own expenditures, along with its own revenues.
And that's
So-
what's under Grand Crossing?
Yep, so that's anything Grand Crossing. The Grand Crossing does not only house, below deck concession items, the river rink, it has Bags League and some other adult programs that go on throughout the winter, summertime, and then it also houses our outdoor adult wellness on the water fitness program, which is actually a sponsored program that we put into this budget since it's at that location. So,
And how did the ice rink do last winter?
ice rink
you
did very well last winter.
cover all its expenses? and-
I think we were
For the ice rink,
yeah,
overall, the ice rink does
fourth-
well. But then when it
4,000.
comes to the summertime, it kind of doesn't do as well.
Yeah.
As far as the ice rink.
But the rink itself, because I
Rink
know there's
itself.
been questions about the
No,
city
the rink-
subsidizing it, and we've been covering.
The rink
The rink
itself.
could be, it's fully unsubsidized, like, at
Yeah.
this point.
It's the other
It's
programs
great.
that kind of eat up the other stuff.
Yeah.
Also, just something I constantly hear good news about. Just some of the really creative nights that you had last winter. There are so many great themes and just fun music. Yeah.
You should all be hearing a lot of things on the radio because all four Midwest Family Broadcasting radio, stations will be promoting our rink for the next month and a half really heavy. So
Sweet.
very excited. We just secured JJO this morning, so
Nice.
$3,000 in free advertisement for doing some shop local program that they have. So they'll be doing some deals, but in return we got some great intern marketing. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
That's
We're excited to
wonderful.
see that happen.
And it'll be on VMO as well, right?
Yeah, it'll also be on VMO. So they're giving me the raw digital that we recorded up at Midwest. Jessica and I did that last week, and then they're gonna let Will play it over here, so then he doesn't have to re-record and just slot it in, which would be nice.
Super easy.
This is all tourism grant.
Yeah, that's tourism grant money though, that's funded through, but
And
the
Miss-
JGO thing was actually a very nice shop local where it's basically intern free ticketing for paid marketing on their promotion, so it's free for free, which is really nice.
Anyone else?
Just a question. I'm looking for the pool. Am I not in the right section
We're
of
not.
the budget?
Separate
We're not even there yet. Okay.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Let's go.
I think that would be the next.
Yeah.
Ready to
We
go?
don't have anything else
timing.
about rec,
Good
we'll go about the pool. Okay.
Okay, outdoor swimming pool, this 133.
Got it.
Everybody there?
Got it.
Outdoor swimming pool, we have a lot of changes on the expenditures in terms of like where our staff allocation goes. So kind of the same thing we had last budget cycle, some of the after-school funding of that salary was coming out of outdoor pool. Well, the outdoor pool is much more easier to run by seasonal employees versus our full-time. So we wanted to put our full-time people towards our summer camp program, so they'll be running with the kids all the time, and I can use our part-time wages to get some seasonal pool managers and run the ship that way. We reallocated some of our patch sales to be more realistic to what we did this past season. We did do a fairly significant price increase on our fees in 2023 for the pool, which I do think in turn changed our patch sale price, but we also brought in more in our daily admissions, so the two kind of fluctuate. If I don't bring as much in the season pass sales, usually I see more of it in the daily revenue, and vice versa. They all kind of pan out to be equally the same. They go like that. One interesting thing was our concession stand. We brought in a substantial amount of money compared to what we have in years past. So we bumped that up to be more true. I have not figured out why. I don't really know. There's been no rhyme or reason. It just really fluctuated this past year. I only did small increases on prices, so it wasn't anything that should make or break the bank in any terms like that. So something went right. In our swimming lessons, I decreased a little bit to also, we're seeing an interesting trend where our morning lessons are starting to see some openings due to, and what I think, working parents not able to get their kids to morning lessons, but we have very long afternoon wait list. So we did some things to include, like with our full day summer camp, parents have an additional add-on fee that they could sign up for swim lessons, and then we take the kids down to the pool and swim lessons to get our morning slots filled with kids that now can take, the afternoon. So doing some recreating internally to fill the pool in the morning to get more in the afternoon. We're at kind of a standstill in the afternoon. We're never going to be able to offer any more space, time, or place due to our swim and dive schedule. We share half the pool with them. It's great. They bring in part of that pool rental. They're $25,000 of it, so we can't complain that they're here during that time. They are a great presence, and a big turn in part of why I get so many staff is because we have such a great relationship, and they're able to do both harmoniously. So it works out very well for both of us. So I think swimming lessons is always going to kind of top out at that unless we do a big price increase. But I don't want to start pricing out people from wanting to take our lessons. I still want to be an affordable option because swimming is such a valuable resource. Our part-time wages and everything else on the expense side, we increased our pool operating, but I don't think much more. Any questions?
Missy, did you say that you take the kids, so the parents drop the kids off at daycare, and then from daycare you shuttle them over for swimming lessons? That's extraordinary.
We do that. We do it for
That's
swimming
fabulous.
lessons, tennis lessons, flag football. Yeah,
That's
we cart kids all
amazing.
over from one place to the other
That is incredible.
all day. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember switching my schedule around when I was working and the kids for lessons.
Yeah.
Going in late so we could take them to
It's
lessons. Yeah, that's
so
really
helpful
handy.
to parents. Wow.
Yeah. So now they come down. It's one-stop shop. They can
Yeah.
sign up for a lot of fun things.
I would say the pool is one of the harder ones to budget for, just because it's so weather dominated with that. And also this was a tougher one, as you notice, you see the salary grant in 2020 is COVID. It's very difficult, it's hard attracting people. I know we have swim and dive people, to get people there. Other than that, it's very difficult to get employees for that, so that's a tougher challenge, so with that.
Aquatics overall is very difficult. They're in a huge shortage. We're very fortunate that we don't typically fall in that pattern, but it has a lot to do with the safety, the facility. Like, people like being here, they like working here. They would like to get paid more for working here, which we haven't quite bridged the gap in comparison to some of our local municipalities that are in relative distance, but there is something being able to, work in the same place you live, and a lot of the kids like to do that.
Do you still offer the lifeguard certification to new, because that's kind of a draw too, isn't it?
Yeah. So we get 10 kids each year, and then what we started doing this past summer was certifying all of our summer camp staff as well. So then when they're at the pool, because we have kids at the pool from our summer camp program 4 days a week, 4 out of the 5 days. So we also then certified all of our summer camp staff, so they were also lifeguard certified for the pool days, and then Fridays they go to the beach. So we always have people on staff that are water safety certified and CPR first aid.
And you're getting a lot of those from the older high school kids from the Monona Swim and Dive team perhaps come to work at the pool.
We have a vast amount of our team that
that's nice.
works for us and is very cohesive. The entire high school girls swim team, I swore work at our pool this past year. Anyone that wore braids at the pool this past year was on the girls swim team.
Yeah.
They all had braids and they all worked there.
Nancy?
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, I was going to specifically ask about the wages for lifeguards, because I know now probably 4 or 5 years ago, we bumped up the wages, and we talked about getting closer to that 15. I mean, I remember, Alderwood and some of it. So where are we with respect to that?
So we're at a 12, 14, 20, tier system. So $12 is a first-time lifeguard.
Okay.
14, you can go 14 to $16 is the range.
Okay.
For our head guards, and you have to be 18 and you have to have 2 years experience. And basically, every year you have a 50-cent increase. So if you're year 4 guard and you're a head guard 2 years of it, you're probably making $15 at that point.
Okay.
If you have an additional certification, like your lifeguard instructor certification or your WSI, that puts on a couple different merits on how much they make as well, because that's an additional certification you have. Pool managers make $20, but they don't have to be lifeguard certified at all.
Right.
But they're in charge of opening, closing, aquatic attendance.
Yeah.
So lifeguards are 12 to 14 primarily.
Okay.
We do have 4 that make 16 an hour, but they've also been there 5+ years and are very dedicated to working with us.
Right. Okay. So we have consistently since that time, because I think, like I said, I remember it was
We've not
that long after I came on council, and this is my year 7, so we were talking about it. So it has inched up. We're not totally...
The starting point has not inched up, but the merits on how we can get them better have.
Okay.
But not everybody has the capability, and
Right.
some of those certifications cost a lot more money, so
Right.
interns are making that money back.
Okay.
Well, it might be something to consider putting in the operating budget number.
Yeah, and then my second question is, first of all, I think all of us concur with what Teresa was saying, which is, we know that you guys do a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we're asking questions, it has nothing to do with not doing the finance. We know you guys do a great job. I would love to know how many of our programs have a sliding scale. All these programs that you just rolled out, a sliding scale for people that are underserved or have been disadvantaged in some way, or is there a scholarship fund or something?
We have a scholarship fund.
Okay.
So it's 50% off of a program fee and $150 per family. So you can break that up depending on how you choose. So if you have some people in the program that are very young and active, but you have some kids that are older and not using, you can shift some of the money or all towards one child versus all 3. So it's $150 per calendar year. And then swimming lessons is 100% waived, along with pool passes.
Is that a rec policy?
No. It's just, I'm assuming at some point it may have been a park and rec board policy that was probably made a long time ago. Because that is what we've had in place for as long as I've been here.
So as an example, if we took something like the after-school program.
Now that is not qualified for that program.
Okay.
That's one that does not qualify.
Okay, so for something like the after-school program or the summer camp, if I were, under-resourced in some way and I needed my children to go to that, what would be my options? Would there be any options?
So we do have a program that's like a fund a camper scholarship program that people are allowed to donate to, which is a fund that we are allowed to pull from that we have. Primarily though, majority of the people that are looking for a subsidized program are going to be going to the licensed facility program that offers like the WIC and the financial assistance, which would be the YMCA programs. So typically, we run the same YMCA program, or the same type of program as the YMCA after school, most people that are in that program are utilizing financial assistance because they're licensed and they have different abilities and capabilities based off of that to offer that type of assistance.
Okay.
We currently are not licensed and are not going to be looking at doing that anytime soon.
Okay. And what about something like summer camps that would also apply to summer camps, or?
For like that syndicate camp
Yeah.
program,
Yeah.
that fund that's there would go after school camp, yeah.
And is that fund robust enough to send a kid or two to camp, or I mean, is it like?
We
does it get-
had some of families that donated last year that we were able to help contribute to some, but not a full summer's worth of camp. But we were able to contribute to, some people.
Do you publicize that fund is available? I ask people to donate. I just wonder how many people know that.
It's not
If they're
a
interested in
very largely known thing, I would
Okay.
say. It's out there, it's on the website. We advertise it a lot to our existing camp families because they're already invested in the program.
Yeah.
So a lot of them, $5, $10 extra, on their
Oh, okay, and so they could pay a little more every week or whatever.
to
Okay.
donate. So that's primarily who's been using it right now, but we can see if we can throw a bigger campaign on.
It might not hurt,
No, I mean, I didn't know any of this. And
Send
of course,
send a kid to camp.
yeah.
That's
And
great.
I know we had scholarship funds at Rutabaga for the program as well.
Yeah.
And we had stuff running all year. I mean, I just didn't know that you guys did that, so it's great.
I'll say from our regular rec standpoint, we don't have a lot of people that take us up on the general scholarship form. A lot of people do take it up in the summertime though, but they do have to be a Monona resident and it is a family pass, so they do have to have children in the household.
Anyone else? I think, is that everything, Mark?
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say about?
I think that's all of them.
Thank you,
One day
Missy.
if we can just combine them all and it's just one tax money, one number, and
That would be nice.
general funds. That's all we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody need to take a break? I think I'm going to take like a 5-minute break here.
Bat and cleanup. Some bat and cleanup on this one.
That's legal.
Yeah, I got it.
I like the mustache. It's only been away a long time. You didn't have one last time I was here.
Uh-oh, getting dying a little bit.
No, these are the new charting ones.
Oh, okay, cool. Try to contain your excitement down there, Holder. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Try to contain your excitement there, sir. This is a lot of numbers, a lot of data to crunch through. It's not exactly, we'll refer to it as casual reading. It's like, phew.
Well, it's not like there's all kinds of extra cash to throw around.
This one's a little
This starts on page 22.
Page 22 is the main summary for these. Obviously, this is primarily the council salaries here is the main line item here. No change in this budget. Probably is something I'm not sure, and I actually spoke to Mark briefly about this. I was going to check with Leah. Certainly the only thing would be one time is that we're in process of doing all the salary comparisons and analysis for staff. Probably should do that for our elected officials at some point as well. So the mayor did suggest, not necessarily for this coming year, but probably here in the next couple, we probably should at least take a comparison just to see where we are at with that one. So. As most folks, I'm sure you all are aware of, there is a slight time commitment with the job you guys have. So we just want to make sure we're using that and having it to attract the right candidates to be able to run and certainly have something for the time. Nobody's going to get rich or retire probably on these salaries, but certainly want to make sure we are comparative and doing something
It's
on that.
probably been 7 or 8 years, hasn't it, Doug? You
Yeah,
proposed the last one.
Bob was mayor, so, and
So it's at
yeah,
least
it's
7.
probably more like, and probably maybe in the middle of his term, so
That's
10
probably it.
maybe, something. Yeah.
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 I know I was
And
on the
before
council
that,
at
it
the
had
time,
been 15 years,
Yeah.
Yeah,
at
which-
least, I think, before that, so, yeah.
So again, just something to put on the radar for sometime future, not a hard and fast, no immediate pressure to do that, but certainly something that probably should be on the radar for the future.
And again, that's something, when we do it, then you're not eligible to receive the raise till after the next election.
Yeah.
Right.
So you are elected again?
Yeah,
not just the
till you are
next
elected.
one, but, so,
So the last time, I remember half got it
Right.
fairly quickly, and the
That
other
makes
half had
sense.
to wait a year. So.
Oh.
Okay, Neil, sorry.
Nope, any questions? That's really it for legislative. Any questions on that budget?
I don't think so.
Okay.
well,
Now,
so the professional development line is for council to use
Right.
and ask for different programs.
if
and
a
so-
conference or something, a training
Yeah.
or something would come up, there is a budget available for that, so, absolutely. If there are no other questions, hopping down to judicial, again, this one has gone up slightly, primarily due to the personnel line items here. I believe that's the court clerk mark, I'm assuming that's what that is there. Again, pretty much all the other line items, the non-personnel operational items are remaining the same. So really nothing super exciting on that one either. Are there any questions regarding that? Okay. Similarly, it kind of sounds like a broken record here. The legal budget here is, again, the carryover of the exact budget as last year. This is a contracted service, obviously, Mr. Cole, and actually is our current city attorney. You know, the other certainly things that could affect that going forward, we do have a couple things like the PFAS ongoing litigation that's going on and the uncertainty about where that's going to go. I think we're still involved with Walmart and some litigation. So there are some other larger project kind of cases out there that could certainly end up taking more time than anticipated. But right now we're certainly comfortable with the numbers that are out there. I think the one thing that's certainly in my own experience with an election year coming up next year, there's always a possibility that could take up some additional budget and time as well. But at this point, recommending the same budget as carrying forward this time.
And Neil, do we contract for a certain number of hours with Attorney Cole?
It's kind of as needed, really.
Yeah, there is a retainer. Essentially, each one of those. Certainly for I think both for court and for general city business, that is actually a retainer dollar figure. So that is a fixed number, is it not, Mark? So in terms of
I always kind of wonder about that. Like, I never want to reach out to him, and just whatever you say is not going to change my mind. But I'm always wondering, like, I don't want to. Am I spending money?
Well, I think in
If I'm reaching
general,
out to
we'd
him.
like you to talk to me or Neil before you do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a per hour charge, so.
So it is okay.
Yeah. Last year, we've had a lot of lawsuits. We had like Walmart and the hotel and
There are a couple of those vehicle things.
yeah, I can't remember the lady who sued us on our special.
Oh, Jen.
assessment. There's a lot, more than most probably years that I've been here. And
So
you
that's the reason behind the 164?
yeah, that's really, yeah.
Okay.
This year and last year, there was the 22 and 23 was really bad for some reason. Non-retainer, just so you're aware of that, that's, it's 21 and it's going to be high this year. Those are ones we use SIDMIC for. So if they have a lawsuit that's the police department, basically these are police related. I think their retainer is $37,500. After $37,500, and SIDMIC pays for all the attorney fees. So that's our insurance company.
I thought, are we not part of the PFAS class action settlement?
Yeah, we got that money.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
I think that's still, that's been
Well,
an
we-
active,
Yeah, we got 25,000 from it.
yeah, that's been, for most of this year, it's been an active
Oh, I see what you mean.
discussion. It's still been
Right.
finalizing it and signing documents and, yeah.
He does other work too, just like Bill Cole. He does give us a lower rate for the general stuff, and a lot of times he has a higher rate for development, which is covered by TIF. So I know he last time we raised our rates, I told him, if you could shift it more to the development and keep it lower on the general side, and that's what he did. So
And he is an assistant attorney now, he's brought on the last 6 months or so. I assume we pay him somewhat less,
Oh, yeah.
Chris?
yeah, we
assume
do.
so.
So yeah, but this is non-TIF stuff, so all the TIF stuff is separate. That's a separate one altogether.
Any other questions about that? Okay, yeah. Executive, the next.
Oh, executive section, that's correct, there we go. All right, this is page 26. Looking through there, has some changes in the personnel items a little bit. But again, I think those largely come out a little ahead on those, I think, where they are right now. Those are the executive salaries, and then the health insurance. Actually, salaries went up a little bit, but health insurance went down. And I think the majority of those other line items have remained the same. Actually, they all have remained the same at that point. So the overall drop is actually a drop in budget by about $3,000
Questions?
for the executive.
Yeah, I have one. Sustainability coordinator. That's Thor, correct?
No.
No. Mark, can you
No.
explain, did we,
So we used to we used in 2021, I can't remember what her name was.
Elisa.
Elisa, she was an intern.
She was an intern.
Yeah.
So we used to have somebody that was their title. And then what we did, we basically realigned it last year. When we took Thor's position, added Thor's position, we took that money to help pay for Thor, and Thor was going to do some sustainability stuff. So that's why there's no coordinator. So it's kind of combined now.
we still have someone doing those duties, but it's just,
And Thor does,
And it's represented in planning, not here.
yeah, right.
Okay, I get it.
Anyone else? Assessment?
Assessment is basically page 44. This is a contracted service. We are currently out for RFP for the coming, for 24 to through 28, I believe, 24. To 27, 24 to 27. We're looking for a 4-year contract at this point. At this point, we simply have budgeted the same amount that we currently have. Again, that issue just went out like last Friday. I think those proposals are due on November 13th. So hopefully bringing that to finance and personnel, I think, is probably the plan. Then that following week.
Hopefully we get a couple at least.
And we'll just,
So, yeah, I mean, it's safe to say it's got to be a pretty thankless job. I don't know anybody that thinks their assessment was great. Maybe with a few exceptions. Most people think just the opposite. And I know the last time, if I remember correctly, we only had like 2 people, right? That were
Who
two
sent in a bid,
businesses
yeah.
that were
There aren't very many
responding to
companies
the
that do it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we are expecting that those two certainly have been, there are several smaller firms, I think, certainly throughout northern Wisconsin, central and north, that might, if they're expanding, they're growing, there's a possibility they could put a proposal in, but I think we're most likely to see the same candidates as previously.
And dare I, at some point, there was a suggestion made that, there are numerous municipalities that obviously have their own assessors, and the whole idea of hiring, somebody moonlighting, or multiple people moonlighting to take a small community like ours. Is that?
Well, I think you're thinking maybe of the time that it was mentioned that Fitchburg had told one of
Right.
the former alders that,
Right.
we could use their staff, and I did ask their current mayor about that, and she's like, what? No, I can't imagine we could do that. So
We did
I-
all-
Right, except for the fact that if they're moonlighting in some way or shifting their
Yeah, but I
hours,
don't
they
know.
wouldn't necessarily have control over that. I mean,
No, but moonlighting, I
Right.
mean, we have a lot of properties for them, but for someone who's moonlighting, just working a few hours a night or whatever, I guess, I don't know.
Well, isn't it like half of the properties a year?
It depends on how we set it up.
Yeah, we've asked for several options actually in the RFP in terms of presenting, in terms of the level of intensity of work required, essentially going from just a pure market sales basis to a full inspection range, and asking them to provide us kind of a range of services. We actually did post the RFP on the League of Municipalities, kind of classified ads and websites. So if there was something out there who was interested in doing that, maybe there's a pretty good likelihood they might see that.
Okay.
We'll certainly see if in fact that would happen or not.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I will say this, that mainly Dane County, I live in the Dane County area. If they don't have, like Sudbury, Fitchburg, I don't know if Middleton does, but Mass all have their in-house ones.
Right.
Pretty much the other ones in Dane County all either have one or the two.
Right.
One we had last year.
Right.
So they're the ones that can handle it.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it does vary in price based on what we want them to do, because was it like 6 years ago, we had them do a quarter of them were walked through every year, and then the last year or two,
Yeah, so this
They
last year's
based it on
basically a
sales
strictly
and-
markets readjustment. You just have where you go through 1 quarter per city, or 1 quarter per year. So we had a contract, it was a 4-year contract. like
yeah.
$60,000, $70,000 contract. I don't remember the exact number. So they'd walk through every different quarter each year for 4 years.
Yeah.
Certainly the challenge with that is obviously with the increase in intensity of detail review, obviously comes with an increased cost.
Yeah.
So it's always trying to find the right balance of trying to keep it as accurate and current as possible, but certainly seeing exactly how much the council is willing to invest in that particular endeavor. So then we'll take a sustainability plug here too. We did, this is I think the first RFP, at least we've issued with me. We actually incorporated language that said that the hired assessor must provide reports and documents in Spanish at the request of the city. So we'll see how that is received by the consultant community in general. I think we can't be the first one to probably ask that, but we'll see exactly if there's any pushback or response to that. So, but it is the first one we've actually incorporated that language in. So.
Okay, that's good.
I'm just looking at that now on the League website. That's nice to know. Thank you for letting us know it was posted.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's nothing else about assessment, the other item is tourism, which is page 147.
Very, very quickly, this is the current amount. Spoke with Mark specifically on this one, and that the projected budget amount is simply based on the projected amount for 2023, carrying that forward. We have had some conversations with. Certainly, I asked, called Madison, the destination Madison, and asked how they were seeing their information going. They're looking at about a 6% increase in their revenue. We're looking at a much more dramatic increase simply because of the new inventory we've added, as well as things certainly like inflation, certainly like the room rate costs are increasing. So there's, I think, actually, hopefully 530 is actually a conservative estimate that we're holding serve on this one with all those other factors. Hopefully that's even maybe a little higher, but I think I agree with Mark's projection here that we should just kind of hold serve on that for this year. in terms of kind of a projected revenue at this point.
It'd be interesting to see how many additional short-term rentals we get.
And that is the other factor that is out there, obviously, yes. I think that, I think certainly we may lose a couple with the new regulations, but I also have a feeling that may actually create a few more too, just by people out having to say, hey, wait a minute, I should probably do that. I have an opportunity to make that happen. So I think we'll see what that impact ends up being.
How much of the 530,000 year-end estimated is from short-term rentals? Like, do we know? VRBOs and-
Last year you said it was about 100,000, didn't you?
I've got the spreadsheets here. Let's see. Let's see, for 2022, looks like we had, let's see, it was from, it's mostly from Airbnb, it was about $92,000 in 2022. Mobile Way was 25,000, miscellaneous Airbnb, about another 3,500. So it was significant.
Expedia.
And Expedia those as well. Yeah, so that's 54. So yeah, so those are significant. Country, just in comparison, Country Inn and Suites was 125, Avid was 151, the American was 95. So they're certainly less than the hotels, but still a significant amount of revenue.
How many different services does
I have a
the software?
question if we
Hey, I think Nancy's asking a question, then Rick, okay?
Right, how many different services does the software pick up?
I supposedly pick up all of them. I think it searches all of the primary, like any of the things we have listed here, it should search them. It's the Airbnb for sure. I'm guessing Expedia absolutely. So my understanding is that it does actually search any online listing. It's supposed to be searching. So.
Because honestly, every time I turn around, I'm hearing of a new one that's cropped up, and it may be that they're cropping up all the time to avoid software programs like we just contracted with. But I found out about it because our house was rented in Maine by somebody. I mean, our rental agent uses all those services, and and so there were two different rentals that used services that I'd never even heard of before.
Yeah, it's probably one of the, I think most of the primary ones, probably not 100% foolproof, I would imagine. But we've even heard examples of the way it was identifying new rentals was searching reviews left on sites. So they were actually, we've heard examples, not here in Monona, but elsewhere, of owners with short-term rentals telling their tenants not to leave reviews on their site to try to avoid detection on some of that. So an extreme example, I think, but I think for the most part, it seems like just from the inquiries we've had so far, probably a pretty stable group at this point.
Yeah.
I think they just checked, so they got the software. It's up and running. And I know the code enforcement and everybody's kind of starting to figure it out. Technically, there's like a 6-month grace period, so January 1st it will be hit really hard. I think they're sending out stuff now to warn them, but I think there was 41 we had so far, which is actually down a little bit from 44 or 43.
Something like 43 or 45.
Yeah, one of those was 44, 45. So,
Did they say when that meeting, and maybe you've had other meetings that I haven't sat in on, but with the software company, didn't they say there were like 15 different sites that they routinely check for things like the RBO and whatever? I don't know what they are, but I assume they're.
And to your point, the longer, there's probably new registration sites popping up all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have to try to keep track of them.
Yeah.
So probably the biggest thing is Neil's getting probably inundated with people asking for the exemption.
Only 6 so far. Only 6 so far.
I was just saying to Alderwood that just today the New York Times has an article. It's called "If Short-Term Rentals Are Illegal, How Come My Neighbor Is Still Doing It?" Talked about like listing properties on Facebook, and so to Aldermore's question, like what are the software platforms that this new program is checking? I mean, that would be interesting to know.
I'm sure we can get that information.
Absolutely.
So they're clearly flying under the radar and still doing it. So.
Probably more is more the enforcement, it's probably where it's.
I'm sorry, what was
It's probably
that?
more the
Yeah.
enforcement, and it's.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes,
Oh, Rick, sorry. Yep.
yeah. I noticed, there's 157,000 that's transferred to general fund. Are there requirements, restrictions about how that's used?
There's no requirement how it's used. So at one time, before the state changed the law, probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, we still keep every dollar for the city. And then they changed it so you only can keep so much that you received, and I can't remember what year it was. Whatever year it was, I have the number, is 157,000. So they can use that, the city can use it for whatever they want. So there's no restriction on that. And that's just part of our balanced budget. So if you look, there's a transfer in on the revenue side of the general fund.
Okay, thanks.
So we use that for operating expenses. Anyone else? Okay, I think, Neil, I guess that's all for you. Mark,
Yeah.
you want to start on finance?
Yeah, I'm going to start finance, and I'm just going to kind of go in order, so it might not be quick.
Okay.
So if you start on page
Is it 30?
30, page 30. Really, there's no change for the non-personnel. I did flip-flop a couple numbers for the audit, went down a little bit, and then I used that for professional development. I haven't really been had a chance to use a lot of professional development.
I don't know why.
There's been a lot of different changes with the state and the accounting world, so I hope they get going back to professional development with that. So that was just flip-flopping 2 numbers. Next is just kind of general government. If anybody's had any questions on that. General government is just a bunch of little ones. So on page 40.
Thank you.
46 is just, this is our insurance. So I mentioned, everybody knows kind of, we do CIVMIC is our insurance company, a part owner of CIVMIC. One of the original owners, so we're back. So workers' comp is a number, they tell us what it is. It fluctuates, a lot of it's based on their factors. If you have to pay a lot of workers' comp, a lot of accidents, there's a multiplier goes up or down with that. Property and liability insurance is going up a little bit. Automobile insurance, for some reason, there's been a lot of accidents lately. Their vehicles, so that's kind of gone up. Just purchasing assets too, vehicles, has had an impact on that. So it is a large increase. Basically 9,000, almost 10,000 for workers' comp. Property and liability, 4,000, and 4,000 for automobile. These again are all straight from our CIVMIC company, and it's really just based on our factors that cause a lot of those numbers.
So Mike, can I go back to the automobile insurance?
Sure.
This is kind of off the cuff. They had a lot of accidents beyond the police vehicles. Have we had a lot of accidents?
We've had a couple of them. We had a couple of the fire department had a couple trucks. Had an accident. A mower hit a car. Accident. Some with a police vehicle. So there's been more than usual. It's just like a weird year for accidents. I don't know why. Public Works hit a vehicle too. So it's just more than most that I've ever seen is this year. So, but unfortunately, it all happened at once.
Anything else for Mark on insurance?
Page 49, it's just legal taxes. So basic tax write-off, a lot of these are, we get a tax claim or some uncollectible delinquent personal properties that would go in there. Average up and down about 10,000. over the years. So other financing sources, what that means is the general fund is giving money to another fund. The CDA, I'm trying to think why, if this was an ordinance thing, because this has been in there since I was here. We always gave money to the CDA. So we transferred $20,000. Debt service in the past, we take our fund balance. This is where this would show up. We transfer some of our fund balance into the debt service. We're not doing it this year, but you can see in 2021 we have transferred into the debt service. In 20, you see the community rec, we're talking about it either closes or we receive money or we have to pay money through the community rec. 21, 22, and projected 23, the general fund will receive money back from the community rec, which is I call them 204 funds. And then in 2020, we did have to pay, they were short of $23,000. So that's what that means.
Mark, I have a question. What the transfer to CDA, what is that used for?
So that's just used to balance their budget. So that's for basic salaries. And if they have, I don't know, Gary Becker is like their consultant who looks into different proposals and things like that for developers. Depending on what type of proposal, if it's in a TIF, then the TIF eventually covers it. If it's not in a TIF, then really the CDA covers it. So it's kind of it's based on what, if it's TIF or non-TIF.
So mostly consulting fees for 20. And then transfer to debt service, why would there be nothing there?
For this year? This year we didn't. So basically in the past we've taken our fund balance. You really don't want to use fund balance for ongoing operations costs because then next year you got to fill that number.
Sure.
We use it in the past for debt service because it's a one-time activity. And so we've had in the past, we've transferred money because our fund balance was higher than what our policy was. So that was, and we use that to offset some of the debt service cost to keep the debt lower. Debt service levy portion lower.
And that's usually sort of one of the last things we would do if we were going to do it. It's to have an amendment to transfer funds from the fund balance to debt service.
Okay.
We're we're right at 25%. I think is Mark's projection.
So is this
whether we want to transfer it this year or not, and we can have a discussion.
So this line item would represent additional payments?
Yeah.
It would reduce the levy.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's all here for that. And then next is paid family leave, which is 145. So this was established pre-COVID, maybe 2019 to 2018. So basically, you get 2 weeks of paid family leave if it's for like a parent or a kid or somebody,
A new baby.
we would give them. So this is like basically like a lot of times, like say it was my position, so nobody fill in for me. So I don't get paid out here. Mine just pays on my just regular salary. But it's mainly like for police and fire, anybody, public works, anybody who receives overtime, or we have to fill in a position with overtime or any other type of service. So it does get used, but we filled that years ago with fund balance, and we had about 60 or 65,000 left in there slowly.
Is that what we still left? Is it?
Yeah.
But just because there's no value in like 2020, 21, 22, it doesn't mean that we didn't offer that to our employees, correct?
No, they've used it so that like
Yeah.
FML people use it. I mean, it's all offered to everybody.
Under the
Right.
expenditure
Yeah,
lines.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm misreading. Okay, thank you.
And then the other was, where is it? It's parkland dedication, 153. There's really not much in here. I just kind of want to explain what it is, and it's probably going to have amendment during the year if you needed it. So basically what this is when a developer comes in, they have to pay parkland. Instead of giving the city parkland land, they give what you call money in lieu of dedication. I can't remember the exact dollar amount. It's so much per unit, so like $1,300 to $1,400 per unit. So when they come in to pull the permit, they're required to pay that at that time. So, we haven't had any large apartments complex come in. There was something to do with the current. There's developer's agreement. We got something, so they had to pay parkland dedication fees. So that's why you don't see money from the current in these 2021 years.
And Traced went to the Lottis.
Yeah, Tracy went to
right?
Lottis Park. But there's something in the agreement for the parkland dedications for developers' agreements for the current. So basically this year, I think we'll probably up with 250,000. Probably it's higher than that if all of them pull the permits this year. The money is for capital-related items, any type of park, shelter, park, anything related to that. So I assume once we start digging into either 24 or 25 budget, eventually we'll have to use this money. We don't have to. There's no requirement we have to use it by a certain date. So so you can hold as long as you want if you wanted to. But we will have to use that, and we'll be for some type of capital project in the year.
Will we get money from North? Did we get money from North Point, or are they allowing for a little?
No, North Point paid.
They did pay, and then Besa will probably. You assume they'll pay too.
Yeah, so I assume about everyone's about 100,000 each. Close to it.
So is North Point the one that's come in?
Yeah, North Point is coming in. Besa was supposed to pull their permit fairly soon.
Right.
I haven't heard what's going on.
Right.
I guess is the latest they're waiting for MG&E. Although I saw MG&E trucks over there.
Yeah, I'm not.
The other day.
Yeah, or somebody has to sign something off on it. So, it's all on their end.
But the money can only be used for capital projects.
Yes.
In our park.
And for park capital.
Correct.
Correct.
And I'm assuming, obviously we haven't looked at the PIP here yet, but the Parks Commission for Bloom, we did pass unanimously.
Yeah, that should be.
So that'll be coming forward too. So then it's a good sized building in comparison to.
Yeah, it'd be a little over 100,000 for that one.
So we should have a fairly decent amount in there, right?
Yeah, the 250 is a weak number. That's a low number if they all come through. So those are decent.
And it's only for residential or partially residential buildings, right? It's not commercial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So if there's, say, you had a house that's already there, and you tear it down and rebuild it, you don't have to pay for parkland dedication. It's only if it adds additional. So they would have paid when first, say, one house was torn down. They would have paid their first original parkland dedications fee when they built the original house. So it's only if it adds from the original one. And then, eventually Slendy and the other projects and everything.
So do you have any, is that it for you?
No, I have one for, it's the one at the very end. So the transit.
Oh, that's right.
What page, Mark?
That's the very last page.
Okay.
So this is just the first student contract. So I put that in for now. And so once the commission will send a recommendation eventually to the council, and then at least have this as the budget number for now. So that sent to the state is for our aid calculation.
So any questions, anyone?
I just have a thought as it relates to the transit. If first of all, we're meeting this month, and I appreciate everybody's patience with me getting back around that. But if we were to contract with Metro, and technically, at least on paper, we seem to say that
Be cheaper.
It would be cheaper.
It'd be a little bit of savings, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also anticipating that if we would go, frankly, either way, we've talked at Transit about the fact that, frankly, we've done a pretty crappy job advertising our transit. I mean, one of the things that we learned from the transit survey, it's like so many things in the city, our residents don't know very much about it. Even our current transit service, never mind, a new one. And obviously, if we were to make the switch, it would behoove us to make sure that we are all hands on deck in terms of getting to the community and helping them understand the changes. And so I'm assuming that if that were the case, that we could reallocate funds,
Yes.
any savings, or some of the savings anyway, towards marketing, without an issue.
And just so you're aware, that,
Yeah.
to say, once whatever one's approved, say if it is Metro, we have 6 months termination clause in there,
Yeah.
and then Metro needs their time to
Right,
do their stuff. So it's at least 6 months.
right, exactly. So we will, yeah.
Any other questions about transit or about anything else? About the
So the
budget?
next meeting will be Monday, the first read, so if you have any budget amendments, if possible, if you can, like Thursday, if you want them in the packet. But again, you can always send them over the weekend and I'll hand them out one way or the other.
In no huge rush, because we aren't doing the final read till,
Right.
the 20th, I think, or?
Correct. The other one would be the capital, if anybody has any capital one. If you can get that too, because that'd be the final read.
Yeah, those we need to have.
And again, if they get in the packet, they still can propose that. But it'd be nicer to have something to stand out.
So questions, anybody? No? Okay. I guess given that there aren't any, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick, thank you.
Yes, that was a
Food coma.
So if you
You sick, Mark?
I've had it go for
I
probably
guess I
2
didn't know
weeks.
that either.
Just won't ever, stuffy nose won't ever go away.
Okay.
Take it like every time medicine, it just stays there. Might have been COVID like
Yeah, you
times.
saw